But let's play that clip from Steve Bannon, because I mean, it's no surprise that Kennedy has been, talking to these people. He very early, even in I think the run up to the Trump administration, went in and had a meeting with Donald Trump. I think he was going to sit on some type of like vaccine, safety advisory board. I don't know if he actually ever sat on it, but there were meetings. Remember when people were going in, I think even Kanye made.
Well, no, it's also reminiscent of when Trump got elected. Tulsi Gabbard went and met with him, and she was under consideration.
That was during the same thing where they're all going into Trump Tower.
But the point is, like, this is a similar situation in that she was nominally running as a Democrat, so was RFK, and it's clearly a right wing, there's right wing influences behind it.
I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, and I don't know if this is, I don't know if it's, Bobby Kennedy's plan or not Bobby Kennedy's plan. I don't know if it's anybody else's plan, but you look at the media that Kennedy has been going on. And if you were running a campaign to win, and I believe that he thinks he can win a Democratic primary, this is not the media you would be going on. You have a strategy. And it's not just a question of I get on wherever I want to get on. They're going to weaponize this Rogan interview. They could have weaponized the one with Jordan Peterson. I mean, YouTube had to take it down because it was full of so much disinformation.
On this in this Rogan interview, he said that cell phones emit. Well,
we'll play that clip.
Yes.
I mean,
all right.
But the point being that, why would you go on all these right-wing media things? I mean, you may get your 20% in the Democratic primary because your last name is Kennedy and people associate that. And also, he did good environmental stuff, although he has a sort of blinkered notion of climate change, it seems to me today. But nevertheless, here is Steve Bannon with maybe a clue as to what Bobby Kennedy is doing. This is Steve Bannon on his Steve Bannon show, or whatever it is, the War Room or whatever they call it. Here's Steve Bannon.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not going to win the Democratic nomination. The reason is that hardcore Democrats are not going to vote for it. If you look at the polling, his voters, that 19 to 20+%, whatever it is right now in the polling, are people that voted for Obama twice looking for change, and many of whom voted for Trump in 16. What you have is this anti-establishment, anti-authoritarian, populist movement that doesn't trust the administrative state, doesn't trust the deep state. Now, there's so many things we don't agree on, but all I ask people to do is to take all of the Keebler elves, and listen to what they had. Listen to Mike Pence over the weekend, Judas Pence. Listen to these guys. Listen to all the Keebler elves, and then listen to what Robert F. Kennedy's talking about. And you see the Venn diagram. There's much bigger overlap, potential overlap, with what President Trump's talking about. And the Keebler elves are from a party that doesn't exist anymore as far as a viable political party. That's the old Republican Party. They are like the Whigs before the Civil War, right? They don't matter anymore because there's no votes there in what the Keebler elves are talking about. So this is something that's emerging, and you got to keep your eye on it. Is it perfect? No, we live in a very imperfect world. But you see something that's aborting right here, and Hotez, his tweet, he called it an emerging neo-fascist movement in the Elon Musk Twitter, Tucker, Rogan, and RFK, that combination over the weekend that was on them for the vax, right, for the lies and misrepresentations they had said about, particularly with babies and children having to be vaxxed. So there's something aborting here, and we've got to keep our eye on it. This is very much like, as John Fredericks remembers, 14 and 15, when we were talking about this, and this guy named Trump that was leading something that was just starting to coalesce. And of course, people mocked and ridiculed it. He's just a TV guy. All he's trying to do is renegotiate his deal from NBC. No, that was incorrect. Remember, in the conversation I had with the president down in Mar-a-Lago, I said, hey, if you knew if you knew it all today of what they've done to destroy your family, put you in bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fascinating what he's saying here, because he's saying something is developing, and he's both admitting that Bobby Kennedy cannot win in the Democratic Party. So what is he talking about here? I mean, maybe it's appropriate within the context of talking about some of this conspiracy stuff to float a couple of theories. And this is just a complete theory I've had, because it's been nagging me for a while. And to hear Bannon come out and say this, almost speaking a little bit prematurely, it seems like what is he saying? It's not perfect. What's not perfect? It seems to me like he's like trying to set up some type of notion. Now, again, the way that this stuff gets planned with people is they always have 4 or 5 plans, and they see what catches. But it's not inconceivable to me, and I don't know that Bobby Kennedy would ever agree to it, although he seems to be, that NBC piece, he seems to believe that he can bring different, bridge some type of divide. When Bannon talks about Obama to Trump voters that helped Donald Trump in 2016 and then abandoned him again in 2020. Maybe what they're looking for is just somebody who they think can deliver the Obama to Trump voter again in 2024. And maybe that person in their mind is Bobby Kennedy. I don't know.
I think that's a good theory, because if Bannon's admitting that he can't win, then, I mean, there's probably no downside for them in backing this kind of candidacy, though. It spreads the kind of like anti-science, anti-authority mistrust that is so helpful to these Bannonites. And then if he's able to get on the debate stage or something like that, and some polls have him at 20% or whatever, that would be enough to qualify if the Democratic Party were to open it up, and I'm skeptical that they would. But either way, he's able to drive a wedge and then potentially be Trump's VP. But I mean, the reason I also mentioned Tulsi Gabbard earlier is because Bannon was instrumental in trying to get her into, he brokered that meeting between Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump. And that was the beginning of her hard right turn, essentially, where then she left the Democratic Party and eventually left Congress. But the same jokers being behind RFK is immensely concerning. And they see some sort of ability to weaponize the wellness to QAnon pipeline and maybe turn certain people out to the polls that normally would not be inclined to do so. I think they might be overestimating that constituency, but it's not a bad laboratory for a far-right fascist like Bannon, who I guess is any day now going to jail. I don't know why it's taking so long, but
this is the I mean, I don't know. This is all just sort of like a speculation on our part, but it is a weird thing for Bannon to say. Is it perfect? What is he talking about? In his head, what is he talking about? What's perfect? What's not perfect? Yeah. It's as if he's asking people to sign on to something that he knows is not perfect, but it has the same spirit as I don't know what that could be. But it is an interesting thing to keep an eye on, and particularly with someone steering him to all this media, and but it's strange.
And I just want to add one more thing too, because I don't know how it will break down, but he used the term neo-fascist there. I don't think that's accurate in where a certain segment of the right is going to want to call from going forward. I think it's going to be an eco-fascist turn for certain influencers on the right. Tucker Carlson's hinted at this before, where you're able to talk about how the dirty immigrants are polluting our water or making our natural resources strained. And depopulation, that kind of stuff all fits into it. Once the most acute effects of climate change are felt, and they are currently being felt, but it's going to get worse and worse, as we know, then there's going to be an opportunity for the right to seize on this in a way that evokes ultra-nationalism and hatred towards outgroups and makes certain people richer. And, the promoting alternative visions of science and saying Wi-Fi disrupts the blood-brain barrier and changes your DNA or whatever the hell. Like that kind of stuff is going to become more salient for people when climate issues actually are impacting them at their front doorstep. I think that's the vision that they're promoting.